Sedo from CORE. Obviously a great friend from D3. How long, you were part of the project from inception, right?
Yeah, shortly after. So like team was about 5 people. So in crypto years, I've been here about 3 years. So it's been a while.
Yep. And you're obviously one of the projects involved deeply with Bitcoin. So let's talk maybe from there. Trump policy, new administration, JD Vance this morning. What's different? I mean, obviously it's a much more favorable environment for crypto here in the U.S. But for your project in particular, what gets you excited about the new administration, and how does that affect product strategy, all of that?
Right. Okay, jumping right into it. I like it. So first of all, I'm Canadian, so I'm pissed about it because of these 51st state comments, including yesterday about the Golden Dome.
Golden Dome.
I'm just kidding. I left Canada, but it's just I find it funny. But no, I think the if you were at Bitcoin conference last year, that was a big shift. You know, whether it's genuine or not, I think they saw a voter base that was maybe a single issue voter, and it worked out well for them. So now they've kind of become that party. But the actual substance behind it, I think, is good, right? We've got commitments for exploring a Bitcoin reserve, which is like Bitcoiners' biggest dreams of all time. It would kick off a crazy cascade. So we're all kind of watching that closely. There's regulation being passed on stablecoins and like dollarizing a bunch of different nations. And I think we're going to see a lot of innovation there. So that's big. And then I think the other big thing is there's been a commitment to clarify regs, right? So even our project had a U.S. founding team, and there's a lot of skepticism of like when to even go into the U.S. market, which we didn't do until a year later, because we were just like, we're not going to fuck around at all. So I've noticed like a big shift with builders being a lot more comfortable building in the U.S. and not having to move to like Dubai to launch a basic software product.
How does it affect, I mean, has it changed where your team lives or where you hire from?
I don't think it's really changed because crypto's so, especially if you're building a blockchain, it's just so, worldwide. There's good talent everywhere. So it hasn't really changed a whole lot, but I do think we're doubling down and getting a few more people in the US and doing more go-to-market stuff in the US, especially with institutions. Like I think we'll dive into our project, but we've got this institutional Bitcoin yield product, and like we're really targeting US institutions for that, US custodians and US go-to-market.
And do you think this is short-lived, or, because obviously it was a boomerang, right, going from the previous administration to this one, do you think it's going to be sustained past, obviously, the next, call it 3 years?
Yeah, it's probably similar to like betting red or black on the roulette table. You just don't really know.
Red or blue, right?
Yeah, but there's like a big discussion, right, where folks maybe, a lot of foundations have Cayman's foundations, and they don't want to set up a U.S. entity. Now a lot of people are considering it, but there's a lot of legal cost and time to then do it when the admin might change in a couple of years, and you just have to like reverse everything. So a lot of folks are kind of patiently waiting it out. I think we just don't have a crystal ball to know. But it's positive right now, so we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah. And obviously you mentioned beyond Bitcoin, just favorable policy, a little bit more, I guess, confidence, whether it's policy or geography. Even outside of Bitcoin, what have you seen community-wise, good and bad, right? And how should other projects, I don't know, like ours, who are a little bit more cross-chain, think about, I guess, the current policy stance, right, of Trump and team?
I think I don't know if it factors into the community side. You mean like regarding community and go-to-market stuff? Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is there's more comfort and excitement to just launch in the US and go after US users, obviously abide by the law, but whereas before, I think people were generally, even the founding teams weren't comfortable operating in the US, period. They would move to Dubai or somewhere else to launch their protocol. So I think there's just like a comfort and ability to like go to market in the U.S. and focus on that market, focus on retailing. For you guys specifically, U.S. is probably like your biggest market, I would have to think. So yeah, I think it's just people feel a lot more comfort and ability to attack the U.S. market, which is great.
And you mentioned institutions. What's on the roadmap? Things that you can talk about that you're focused on for this year, particularly for, I guess, U.S. institutions.
Yeah, so the TLDR, I'll just say I'm from CORE. We're a Bitcoin scaling blockchain meant to enable a bunch of use cases for Bitcoin on chain that you will never really be able to do on the Bitcoin network itself. It doesn't have smart contracts, but it's a great collateral asset. So what we're seeing, and if you look at this conference, there is a lot of institutional interest, mainly because these folks hold Bitcoin, large amounts of it. They typically hold it in custody, which costs them money. So obviously they think the price is going to go up, but it's actually costing them money to hold this asset with custody fees. So they're like actively looking to earn yield, really anything to cover those fees. And there's a mandate right now to actually make interest on your Bitcoin. And because Bitcoin's better than gold, it's programmable on chain, and doesn't have to physically be moved amongst banks. You can actually put it to work. So yeah, what we're seeing is institutions specifically are really looking for yield, typically within custody, where their funds are kind of held and they can access yield opportunities in custody itself, like BitGo, Copper, et cetera. And we have a product. We offer Bitcoin staking. So it's real yield, not lending. You use it to secure core chain. And we're live on BitGo, Copper, Kobo, Cefu, and a bunch of other custodians. And we partnered actually with Maple on an institutional product called LSTBTC, which is launching in like 6 weeks. That's going to enable institutions with lots of Bitcoin and BitGo, for example, to earn interest on their Bitcoin.
Do you think, I guess, the current policy stance, obviously, notwithstanding, is Bitcoin still going to be the kind of the primary institutional on-ramp? Or do you see other coin currency projects that are going to kind of squeeze in as a result of a lot of the, I guess, the more liberal governance and liberal stance from our administration?
Right now, to me, it's like 80, 90% Bitcoin interest. And even there's a lot of institutions that have no exposure and aren't comfortable even getting Bitcoin, right? Hence you've got like the strategies of the world and these ETFs that I think are helping folks allocate a bit of their funds to Bitcoin. But even a lot of the funds are still just learning about Bitcoin. If we get out of that, like our own echo chamber, yeah, a lot of folks have no exposure to Bitcoin yet. So in terms of instos, I think right now they're like just starting to learn about Bitcoin. That's where like all the headspace is. They get it. It's simple to understand. It has the brand. It's been around. It has ETFs. Now they're looking for yield. I think what you might see is ETH. If they kind of open up these like staking ETFs, that'll stoke some interest in institutions to get some exposure there. But really, there doesn't seem to be a lot of appetite outside of Bitcoin.
So what about, we talked about institutions, what about the everyday investor, retail, Main Street? What's changed there? And then does that affect how your project thinks about product, right?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, the retail's interested in memes, and also projects in DeFi. But like, this is my personal view. It seems like speculation. You used to kind of speculate on everything, whether it's core token or any like infra with a white paper, right? And that was where folks would just like speculate and try and make a lot of money, and the markets were heavily volatile. And now what you've seen is like a ton of disappointing launches, disappointing in those, compared to the past, because a lot of retail just wants to gamble on, not gamble necessarily, but like if they're looking to speculate, they'd way rather do this on a fun meme coin with a short cycle time, as opposed to some random infra project that they know nothing about that's been marked up 1 million times by VCs. So I think what you finding is like there's this divide where speculation is going to happen on meme coins and like quick turnaround bets, and then you've got real projects that are doing something interesting, like Bitcoin yield or actual domains, and that'll make money and provide a real product or service that folks will want to invest in too. And there isn't going to be an in between. Like you're not going to see a ton of speculation on random infra projects anymore.
Are you saying the crypto casino is going to come to an end?
No, I think it's more lively than ever. It's amazing. You know, meme coin mania, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think you're just going to have all speculation dollars flowing there, and it's fun and exciting. I mean, we're in Vegas. People love to gamble.
Yep.
And I don't think that's going anywhere. It's just, I just think that's where all the capital is going to flow because it's like very quick. That's where you make your gains, and it's just a lot more addictive, I think.
So are you suggesting, I guess, for Main Street investors, as they think about asset allocation just across crypto, does BTC end up being a hedge for their more speculative investments? Does that end up being kind of just how the thought process is?
I mean, it could be. I mean, I don't think the funds are necessarily doing memes. They're trying to push infra, but I think there's going to be a lot more scrutiny to find value projects that are going to build a real business, because markups are not going to happen on just like every speculative thing anymore because no one's buying it. So what you'll see is there'll probably be less deals because they don't know if they're going to make money on these investments unless they have a good team and a good product. So that'll like lower the amount of projects. And then some capital will go to liquid funds and liquid exposure, which to me is Bitcoin, ETH, and your blue chip assets or Aave that are like running real businesses and doing super well. So I think more capital is going to flow to those good projects that have a proven business model.
Makes sense. I'm curious in the crowd, I guess, who holds BTC here? Probably everyone. Who also enjoys crypto casino, meme coins, NFT projects? There's like finger shaking. Oh, no. So there's some purists out there, and then some, obviously the casino is alive and well. What's your message, I guess, this year, whether it's people in the BTC community here for the conference or just crypto in general, that we should get most excited about and also maybe be more careful about?
Man, good question. I think most people are here for Bitcoin. I think the big thing is just try and learn more. Folks are like, it's just people are still taking the steps to learn what the hell it is. Try to self-custody if you can. ETFs are great, but I think just look into how you can own Bitcoin yourself. And then for folks that have been around a long time, I think the big movement right now, and you'll notice it at the conference, if you were at the original Bitcoin conferences in Miami, I don't think there was a single builder there, right? It was like people who in my, non-technologists who somewhat hijacked Bitcoin for a bit and, just talked about all these freedom pieces, which are super important, but there wasn't anyone building on Bitcoin. You couldn't find a single person there. If you look at this conference, the next wave of Bitcoin is people actually trying to have it do things because it's become a mainstream asset, $2 trillion asset, I think above that. It's programmable money. People are, builders are coming back to Bitcoin to help enable you to do stuff with it. So I think like try and learn about that. That's kind of the next phase that Bitcoin's going into that I think is super exciting.
There seems to be obviously a U.S. resurgence in mining, right? America BTC, backed by one of the president's sons.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that, and how sustainable is it? And like, what's your read on, I guess, the hardware and mining side of BTC?
Yeah, so we work with miners. They secure core chain. 80% of miners today secure the core blockchain. So 80% of Bitcoin blocks are actually re-delegated to core, which is super cool. And you can see that in the Bitcoin mempool. In terms of like strategy of Bitcoin mining, I think, you think of this non-sovereign store of value where no one can really control Bitcoin. It would make sense for countries to take a strategic interest in mining operations. And China had all the original miners, and they still have a lot of Bitcoin, but they obviously got in there legally and hamstrung the industry, and then the U.S. took over a lot of the hash rate. So I think it makes sense to have a strategic view to grow hash rate in the U.S. and have more sway on. Because if you think of Bitcoin and how decisions are made, the miners have a lot of input. There's a whole governance system, but having more sway, I think, is important, and it makes sense that the U.S. would want to have their more interest on the hash rate. So I think that makes sense. And then now they're accumulating a bunch of Bitcoin through these ETFs. So they're growing a lot of, you can't control Bitcoin, but they're growing soft governance, I guess, on the Bitcoin protocol and where it can go in the future, which I think is super smart.
So you mentioned soft power on the chain. U.S. interests aside, like what other countries are you seeing kind of change their point of view, whether at the mining level or even at the community governance level?
Yeah, I'm not an expert here, but I think we're following. There's a lot of speculation that China will open up again and allow folks to, they'll probably like regulate it, but they'll allow them to get into Bitcoin and buy it. And they'll probably, they already have ETFs that have launched in Hong Kong. So I think everyone's watching that. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I think that's interesting. If you've been to the Middle East recently, they're trying to do a push to get more mining hash rate because they have like endless cheap energy. So it's an obvious place. There's a lot of JVs happening there to build these really big Bitcoin mining operations and get some of the hash rate to produce Bitcoin blocks. So those are kind of like two things I'm seeing at a high level. And then you've got countries, like probably T3 countries that are buying Bitcoin, like Bhutan and El Salvador, and we'll see where that goes over time. But I think once you see someone like the US or China buy, it's just game over, right?
Speaking of, I guess, accumulation of Bitcoin, so GameStop this morning, big news, right? Making a big play. What's your perspective on, I guess, corporate crossover from non-TradFi companies trying to, I guess, legitimize their investments on the treasury?
What was the GameStop thing? I missed it.
I don't know. They made a huge announcement.
Are they buying Bitcoin or something?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think I'll just collect my thoughts there.
It's like what's your, I guess, point of view on just obviously not banks and institutions, but like a MicroStrategy, for example, deploying some large percentage of their balance sheet to Bitcoin as opposed to holding it in cash?
I mean, I think it just makes sense. And if you've been a Bitcoiner the last 10 years, this is what every Bitcoiner has talked about. Obviously, you want folks to like self-custody and not see Bitcoin be taken over by Wall Street, but it is, right? It's just kind of the natural game theory of this asset. So, I mean, I think it's super smart, and it's only going to continue. Like, we've seen a couple treasury companies announced. I guarantee there's probably dozens that have not launched yet that have been working on this for the last 6 to 12 months. So it's only going to grow. It makes sense. I think it's just like a natural part of Bitcoin adoption. I wish it was more people self-custodying, but this is just soon it's going to be corporations, then governments, and then it just kind of grows from there, right? And you can't stop that.
So hitting all-time highs, obviously. Maybe we can wrap up. What should we be, I guess, or what are you maybe more pragmatic or even pessimistic about, right? Because obviously, greed index, all-time high, BTC and ETH, and of course, other currencies are pumping. What should we, I guess, be tempered about, or what are you kind of cautiously optimistic about this year, all the greed aside?
This is where you gotta play that. I thought you were gonna like cue the music, pump it up. Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty. I come from like the Web 2 world, so I'm just a very long-term view horizon. So I'm not really a trader or meme guy. I just kind of think really long-term, like where is this gonna go? So the ebbs and flows, I don't think matter all that much. It's just like, hey, Bitcoin's gonna. Like, if you wanted a perfect tee up for where Bitcoin's going to go, I don't think you could ask for anything better. I mean, you just got a budget with like that wants to grow the U.S. debt. You have growing debt all over the world. You've got public companies buying Bitcoin. You've at least had a verbal commitment to start a Bitcoin reserve. Like, it's just like all these tee-ups are insane, right? So it may not trade like crazy in the next month or 3 months, but the general curve looks amazing for Bitcoin adoption. So it's hard to look at negatives. I mean, obviously it's going to still be volatile along the way, but yeah, I'm super bullish. It's like, again, a Bitcoiner's dream right now, I think, for this tee-up.
So what you're saying is 250,000 by the end of the year.
I don't do predictions, but man, that would be amazing. If we do that, I'll come back to Vegas and we'll party.
You heard it here first. 250
Yeah.
or bust.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. But I mean, I actually don't think it's going to go to 250 by end of year, but I think it'll be higher than it is now. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, with that, thanks, Brendan.
Cheers. Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thanks.